Alrighty, so we just completed the Woodfall Temple and brought the Deku Princess back to the Deku Palace, and she told us to take a right just after leaving the palace to reach the Deku Shrine. We want to use the Deku Mask to follow the lily pads and then hop into the dark entrance, which is on the far west side of the map. Now inside, you'll meet up with the Deku Butler, who explains that in thanks for rescuing the princess, the Deku have prepared a gift for you. Now, of course, it just so happens to be at the end of a very lengthy maze, naturally, so they didn't prepare it very well. And he asks you then to follow him, but he rushes off, and this maze is split off into several smaller sections, and they will each close off after a certain amount of time. So if you take too long, then you'll get stuck behind, and you'll have to start all over again. So this wouldn't actually be so bad, except that the Deku Butler moves forward very quickly, and he kind of adjusts his speed to match yours. Now you can use the bunny hood for this to chase after him, but he adjusts his speed to match yours, so if you're going really fast and you're right up in front of him, then he'll move ahead further quickly, so it kind of matches your speed. So I recommend not using the bunny hood unless you're trailing really far behind. Then you want to use it to catch up. So near the beginning, there's these ramps, and I recommend you take off the Deku masks so that if you accidentally jump, that you'll grab onto the ledge rather than just hopping down and hopping on the water. But just after that, just past the ramps, I recommend you put the Deku mask back on, and then you can use A to spin across these chunks of water, and that way you will spin across them really quickly. You'll bounce across, and it makes them much easier because that way you're not swimming and then climbing back up on the ledge. This makes it much faster. Now at this point in this big open area, you can either follow him off to the left, but if you'd like some additional rupees, you can optionally hop on these small stumps to your right. They're a little harder, and you can either use the bunny hood to do this, or you can simply roll just before you jump to get some extra jumping distance. So that's kind of cool, little trick for you. Now for this next part up ahead, I've had a lot of practice for this part, but the goal is to jump to where the platforms will be by the time you land there. Now probably easier though is to simply use the Deku mask so that you can hop along the water, so that way you don't really have to worry about the platforms at all. So if you're having trouble with this, I highly recommend you do that instead. Just use the Deku mask to hop across the water. Now if you have trouble following the butler, you want to look for the light of his candle, and you can also simply use your ears. If he has this hovering sound, and if it's coming from the left speaker, then he's probably to the left, etc. This room up ahead has these invisible flaming walls that will appear once you get close. Now the simplest path to take is to just follow the right wall for 3 squares, and then you want to run all the way to the opposite side of the room. This is the simplest way to do it, and then you just follow the outer wall here until you reach the stairs. That is the easiest way to do this room. So once you reach the stairs, you want to move along the actual steps because these smooth parts are too steep for you and you will slip down, losing precious seconds. So why did they make these stairs like this anyway? Now obviously you want to wait for a gap between these rolling boulders of death, I don't know why they're here, and then make a run for it, and there's more stairs with slippery spots, so just, once again, make sure you step on the actual steps. At this point, up ahead, there's another large room. It's actually at the higher point of the same big room that we were in before, but I recommend you stand fairly close to the edge, so that it's easier to aim at this crystal switch. Now you can optionally use a bubble blast as well, but that's a little harder to aim and you might miss. So I recommend just using the hero's bow. Hit it, this will temporarily deactivate the flames, and then you can run along the platforms. And here I was rolling before I jumped so that I got extra distance, and I almost fell off. Well, this was a little lengthy and completely unnecessary for us to go through, and why do these Deku have so many odd traps along the way? It's like they live down here, but, you know, these traps don't actually stop people or really slow them down. It's just, I mean, if you actually have time to pay attention to it, it's fine. You can make it through it no problem. So chasing after the Deku Butler and having a time limit is really the worst possible situation we could possibly have for this shrine, you know what I mean? Anyway, he thanks us by giving us the Mask of Sense, which allows you to see magic mushrooms. These things allow you to make blue potions early on in the game, but it's quite the process to do, and later on it's kind of completely worthless because you can just purchase blue potions from a business scrub. Overall, not a very helpful mask, but if you plan on completing the game 100% and also getting the final mask of the game, you will have to acquire this. So the Deku Butler briefly mentions that you remind him of his son, who disappeared, and he explains that they used to race against one another, and he apologizes for trying to do that with you, so he actually was trying to stay ahead of you. Now you may have noticed that the masks in this game have mystical powers because they contain spirits. That's what the Song of Healing does, is it transforms lingering spirits into masks that you can then use. Kind of creepy, really. So if you remember from the very beginning of the game, there was that weird tree that looked a lot like a Deku. So really what happened was the Skull Kid transformed a Deku into a tree and used his spirit to curse Link. Then when we played the Song of Healing, we transformed that same spirit into a mask that we can now use. So what that means is, the Deku mask contains the spirit of the Deku Butler's dead son. That's why we were reminded of him. So, they hint at this more thoroughly at the end of the game, but some of you may have already figured it out. Anyway, it's very sad. So, the Deku mask is actually the Deku Butler's son. So once you're all done here, you should go ahead and warp over to Southern Swamp, where there's one more post-Woodfall Temple thing we should do. You want to run all the way to the Magic Hag's potion shop and purchase a red potion for 20 rupees. Then you want to enter the Woods of Mystery and follow the monkey to the end if you don't know the correct path. Now, because I used the Song of Time before I entered the Woodfall Temple to give me the most amount of time, I was doing that for your guys' benefit, everything is reset, so I need to go save Koume again. You want to fork over the potion, just like last time, and she'll return to the Swamp Tourist Information Center. Now, before you leave, you can slap on the Mask of Sense, which we got earlier, and it will allow you to see the magic mushrooms that are here in the Woods of Mystery. Now, if you remember, Koume was out here picking mushrooms when the Skull Kid attacked her, so you can stand over next to them while wearing the Mask of Sense, and then you can use a bottle to swipe them up. So you can then take them to the Magic Hag's potion shop and have Kotake brew it up and make some blue potion, which restores both life and magic. Unfortunately, it takes a while for her to make, and it still costs you money. So it's not very practical until later on in the game, and at that point you can just purchase it from some business scrubs without having to go through this whole magic mushroom process. So it's not very practical. So there's 3 places in the game that you can find magic mushrooms, though. There's the Woods Mystery, obviously. Then there's inside the toilet in the Stockpot Inn in Clocktown, so it's a fungus, I guess. And also in a pair of boxers in the Gorman Traveling Troops room in the Stockpot Inn as well. So any of those places will work, and you can use them to make magical potions. Yay! Anyway, when Koume is rescued and the Woodfall Temple is complete, so poison no longer fills the swamp, you can then speak with her in the Tourist Information Building to play a target shooting game now that you have the hero's bow. So when poison filled the swamp, then she was just doing swamp tours for the photo contest, but now that there's no more poison, then the photo contest is over. I don't really understand the logic behind that, but when there's no photo contest, then she has a game for you instead. It costs 10 rupees to try, and it's also free the first time just after you rescue her, so just like the rides that she gave you before on the boat. So you'll be riding around on the automated boat like usual, but now you can use the hero's bow at the same time. Koume will fly around on her broomstick with a target dangling below her, and the goal is obviously to hit the targets, but you also have to avoid hitting her, because if you smack her a total of 10 times, then your game will be cut short, and you'll have to try again. Now, part of what makes this difficult is that the boat's moving, Koume is moving, and the target is swaying back and forth, so you want to focus on aiming carefully on where you think the target will be next, and then fire. You also have unlimited arrows, so if you plan your aiming well, then you can just mash the B button repeatedly like a machine gun, and as long as you don't hit her too often, you should be just fine, and you should easily hit the targets. So near the end, they practically hand you a bunch of points because she doesn't move very fast, so you can easily rack up the points. So even if you didn't do very good for the rest of this, you'll probably get a bunch of points here near the end. Now you only need 20 points to get the prize, so any additional points you get are just for kicks. Now I usually get between 25 and 27 points when I play this, and my all-time record is 32, so that's a little excessive. Now, I've never really stuck around and played this game just for the heck of it, though. I usually just kind of get the prize and leave. So with more practice, I could probably get a higher amount of points than that. So what about you guys? You know, what's your highest amount of points you've ever gotten in this minigame? And do you stick around and try and get a high score, or do you just kind of move on like I do? So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can share in the comments below. Just please be honest. You know, no need to make up stuff. So once you're all done and you've gotten at least 20 points or more, then Koume will gift you with a piece of heart. Alright, so that's it for now, and we completed the temple, and we got all the after-temple goodies, and so now we're going to save at long last. You want to sort a clock down, and put your rupees in the bank, and then play the Song of Time.